I got an email from this girl who said that her and her friends went to the Appalachian Mountains and one of her friends was literally knocked unconscious by some creature. So we're going to call this girl Kelsey for the story. So when Kelsey was around 15, 16 years old, her and her two friends, we're going to call them Chloe and Lacey, decided that they wanted to go to Kelsey's late grandparents' cabin in the Appalachian Mountains. None of them had driver's license at this time, and so her mom, Kelsey's mom, had to drop them off. And the only thing that Kelsey's mom said when she dropped them off is don't go into the forest at night. She did not tell them about the rules at all. They did not know about the rules at all whatsoever. That's important to know. Now, she said that when they got into the cabin, they set their stuff down, and the only thing that they did do right is they locked the door. They left the windows unlocked and they didn't close the curtains. It starts to get dark outside after they've put all their stuff away, so they decide that they're going to go in the living room and they're going to watch a couple of movies. They're sitting there enjoying the movie when suddenly they hear tap, tap, tap on the window. They all kind of look at each other like, why? What is that? So Chloe decides that she's going to get up and she's going to go over and open the curtain and see what's outside tapping on the window. So she does that, but she doesn't see anything. As she's walking back, though, she did say that she had kind of a weird feeling in her stomach. After she sits back down, they resume the movie and they're just chilling when tap, tap, tap. Again, someone is knocking on the window. So Chloe gets up again. She checks the window again. Still nothing. She walks over. She sits back down. They resume the movie again. And then tap, tap, tap. Really loud on the window this time. This time, Lacey stands up. And Lacey is super annoyed at this point. So she goes over. She thinks that someone is messing with them. She opens the curtains. And as soon as she opens those curtains, she falls to the ground and starts screaming. Kelsey said that to this day, Lacey still will not talk about what she saw at that window. And the crazy thing was is that they stayed there for a week, and this was only the first day. Well, the next day, Lacey is just traumatized at this point. And so she is like, I'm not leaving this house. I don't want to go anywhere. She won't talk about what she saw, nothing. And so Chloe and Kelsey decide that they're going to go on a hike in the mountains. So they go on a hike for a little bit. They're out there for about an hour when suddenly Chloe starts to feel sick, like very sick, and she has to sit down. As Chloe is sitting down, just kind of trying to make herself feel better, Kelsey said that she had this innate feeling that something was watching them. So Kelsey tells Chloe, like, I think we need to go. I feel like someone is watching us. And so they get up and they go back home. The only thing is when they walk through the door, Lacey is not home. She is not there. They check all the rooms. She's not there. They call her 7 times. They called her and she is not answering her phone. They don't really know what to do at this point. They're getting a little worried when Lacey suddenly walks through the door. And Kelsey said that when Lacey walked through the door after that, like that entire night, she was acting really odd. Like she wasn't acting like herself. So they all decide that they are going to go to bed, but not before locking all the windows, closing the curtains, and locking the door. Well, Kelsey goes into her room, she gets ready for bed, and she falls asleep. She wakes up at 5 a.m. because she hears tiles creaking, like someone is walking on the tiles outside of her door. She just kind of calls out, "Girls?" Silence. Nothing. So she gets up and she walks into their rooms. She walks into Lacey's room. Lacey's not in her room. She walks into Chloe's room. Chloe's not in her room. Suddenly, tap, 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 coming from the bathroom window, which is the only one without curtains. So bravely, Kelsey decides that she's going to walk over and check that window. And she goes over and checks and nothing is there. She thinks that maybe she was just hearing something. And so she decides to brush this off and go to bed. So she goes to bed and she wakes up the next morning and she walks outside of the room and she asks Chloe and Lacey, like, did you guys get up last night? And Lacey's like, nope. And Chloe's like, no, I thought that was you guys. Kelsey was a little confused about why she didn't see them in their beds, but I guess she kind of kept this to herself. She didn't really say anything about that. So that day was pretty uneventful. But later on that night, Chloe suggests that they go outside when it gets dark to watch the stars. This was the worst idea ever. She says that as they were watching the stars, they're laying on the grass and they're just looking up at the sky and they're admiring how beautiful the stars are in the mountains because they live in the city and they are not the same in the city. And I can attest to that. So they're just chatting, looking at the stars when suddenly they hear this crack, this like creaking noise. It sounds like someone is stepping on a stick. Now, they look behind them and they don't see anything. So they kind of just brush this off. They lay back down again. They're looking up at the stars and now they're like counting the stars. And as soon as they're counting the stars, all of a sudden Lacey jumps up and she starts screaming. And she's like, something just grabbed my hair. Something just grabbed my hair. Now, Chloe and Casey are like, what do you mean something grabbed your hair? Like, are you okay? They're trying to comfort her at this point. And right as they're trying to comfort her, something grabs Lacey's hair and pulls her down so hard that she gets knocked out. Kelsey said said that as soon as this happened, she saw exactly what did this. And still to this day, over 5 years later, it still haunts her. She said she saw this pale, white-faced creature with Lacey's hair in its teeth as it was smiling, and there was all over its teeth. She's looking at this thing, and this thing is just looking back at her with Lacey's hair in its teeth, smiling at her and coming out of its mouth. As Kelsey is looking at this thing, absolutely horrified, she feels this big shove, and she gets shoved to the ground so hard that she hits her face on the ground, and now her mouth is She said Chloe was just standing there screaming as Kelsey is on the ground. Lacey's still knocked out. At this point, Kelsey looks at Chloe and is just like, call my mom and tell her to come get us. Chloe runs inside of the house as Lacey is still knocked out, and Kelsey is just sitting there tasting her own in her mouth, and this thing is still behind her, and she can hear it, but she's not looking at it because she's terrified to look at this thing, and she doesn't know what else to do, but her face hurts, so she doesn't want to get up. Kelsey said that she laid there for what felt like forever until her mom came and picked them up, and her mom gets out of the car, helps. At this point, I think Lacey is awake at this point. She helps Lacey get into the back seat. She helps Kelsey get into the back seat, and Chloe gets in the front seat, and she said that Chloe was just crying the entire way home. Kelsey said that to this day, she still sometimes will see that white face, especially when she's going through something hard, which I think is absolutely terrifying. And she also said that it just haunts her in her nightmares. She can't get it out of her head. So what did you guys think about this story? What do you think this was? Has anyone ever heard of anything like this in the Appalachian Mountains? That might be the first story that I've heard where someone actually got like hurt by something that was haunting them. Not that it was haunting them. Whatever this thing was, we don't know what it was, or maybe someone in the comments can say what they think it was, because I would love to know if you know, and I'm sure she would too. But I don't even know what to say about this story. It's pretty terrifying. But any thoughts, suggestions, comments that you have, please drop them below. And then I also want to know what you thought the scariest part of the story was. I probably know what it was, but now I'm going to do my favorite part, which is the shout outs. Shab Nab Shan. I hope I said that correctly. I loved your comment. You said that you listen to my stories while you're doing everything, like making your lunches for your kids or doing housework. I love that so much. That's amazing. I listen to scary stories too, as you guys know, when I'm doing stuff. So I'm so glad that I get to be that for somebody else. You are the best. Thank you for being so supportive. You have no idea what that means to me. I loved that comment so much. It made me smile. So thank you for making my day. Thank you for being a part of my community, and thank you for being kind and leaving comments. You are the best. I love you. Priscilla Chicory, you left such a nice comment. Thank you so much for what you said. I feel like tonight I did not do the best job at telling my story because I'm so exhausted. I don't know if you guys can tell. I tried my hardest to get into it, but I literally am falling asleep. But I wanted to tell you guys the story. But what you said was so nice. So thank you so much for leaving that comment. Thank you so much for being a part of my community and being kind and telling me that. That was a cool thing to say, and I really appreciated that. So I love you. Thank you. Instead of doing the outro tonight, I do have to say something, and I'm going to make a video about this too. Guys, if you are a child, please don't send me your stories because I can't tell. In fact, I need you guys to tell me your age when you send me your stories from now on, because the problem is that I had to private a story the other day because I looked at the comment section and the person commented and said it was their story, and I went to their page and you were just way too young for me to be telling your story. So I'm sorry that I had to private your story, but I cannot be telling children's stories on here. It goes against my morals. I just don't feel right about it. So please, guys, send me your age when you send me your story. Other than that, I love you. Keep sending me your scary stories. Have a spooky night.
As many of you know, I grew up in deep Appalachia. I now live in Atlanta, Georgia, and there are times where I'll tell my friends stories from what happened to me when I lived out there, and they're like, what? I already posted about my UFO story last year, and that video got to 3 million views. But today, I'm going to tell you guys the story of when I was a kid and I encountered a skinwalker, or at least what I thought was a skinwalker. I hate long intros, so I'm just going to get into the story. The place I lived was a place called Jasper, Georgia. It's right next to LJ, and I lived in the place where the show Squidbillies was based on, and we have a Squidbillies shrine in our town center. I had a friend that I would stay with pretty often, and her family owned a 300-acre farm, And when I say family, it's just her and her mom who live there. And so they have like all these farm animals, and they have different parts of their land that you have to walk through trails in the woods to get through. Like, in order to get to one barn, you have to walk through the woods for like 10 minutes just to get there. So there was one day that I was sleeping over there, and we had been home alone all day. I was probably in 3rd grade when this happened. Some of you might ask why me and my friend were just like 2 3rd graders alone on this farm. And it was because my parents were getting a divorce, and so I needed a place to go, so I pretty much lived with this girl at the time. But back to the story. So my friend's mom was on the way home, but I guess there was like a lot of traffic, or she was running late or something. So she called my friend and she asked her if we could like go down to one of the barns and feed the horses before we went to bed. So at this point in time, it was probably like 8 o'clock. The sun was going down. It was about to be nighttime. You could still see the sun and the light when you're in the open field, but in the woods, it was like pretty dark. Like there was no sunlight. So my friend and I started walking through the pasture to the woods, and she had a flashlight with her. We got to the woods, she turned the flashlight on, and we started walking. We were walking for maybe like 3 or 4 minutes through these woods, so we're about halfway through the trail, and we're just talking about some shit and laughing. And then all of a sudden, my friend just stops talking, and like I was kind of just like looking at her, like as we were speaking. I wasn't really looking in front of me. And then she just like drops the flashlight and starts sprinting in the opposite direction, like back to the house. And so I was like, "You okay, Rebecca?" And because that was her name. And I turn and I see her sprinting, and the flashlight was just like on the floor in front of me. And I was like, what the fuck? So I turned back in front of me, and I just see like maybe like 10 feet away this gigantic like white figure. And I didn't look at it for long, but just like the sheer height of this thing, whatever the fuck it was, scared me so badly that I looked at it and immediately was like fight or flight mode. Like I felt danger. So right when I looked at it, I turned the other way and fucking booked it. I was running faster than I'd ever ran before. So fast that I passed my friend, and I was like running and pissing my pants at the same time. Like that's how fucking scary it was. And so I ran all the way back to her house, and in my brain I was like, what is the one place I can hide right now where no one will find me? And the only thing I could think of was like I just ran to the laundry room and I got in the dryer. And so I was just sitting in the dryer, and it was like one of those old school dryers. It wasn't like plastic clear cover, so it was just like a white door that closes it from the front. And so I was just in there. I was like curled up in a ball, and I waited like, I don't know, what seemed like 15-20 minutes. I was just in there covered in piss. And eventually I thought that whatever the fuck was in the woods had like killed my friend, and so I was just crying and like I was freaking out. But I was also terrified and didn't want to die, so I was just sitting in there. And then eventually my friend walks through the door, and I can tell that she's crying and she's like hyperventilating. She's like like I hear that. And so I opened the dryer, and she's like scared when I open it, obviously. And I was just like also crying, and we hug each other, and I was like, "Where did you go?" And so she told me that she had ran and she got into like this trailer that was kind of near the house, because it was the only place she could think of to hide. And so we were both hiding, and I guess she just like mustered up the courage to run to the main house. And so we were both just like trying to explain what we saw and like put together whatever the fuck that was. And this was like 2008, maybe 2009. So I think I was like 12 or something when this happened, but this was way before like creepypasta or like any of these stories were like even around. So we couldn't even put a name to like what the fuck we saw out there. And so when her mom finally got home, we tried to explain what just happened, and she just like dismissed us, and she was like, you girls are just like overreacting. You guys saw a bear or like a deer or something, which is still terrifying if we saw a bear, but it definitely was not a bear because this thing was like pure white. And in the dark, it's like the only thing you can really see is like, if there's someone standing in front of you with a white t-shirt, like you're gonna see that. But this thing was completely white, and that's all I remember is just like this gigantic, like 7 or 8 foot tall thing just like standing right in front of me, staring at me. And so I'm not friends with this girl anymore. I haven't talked to her in probably like 15 years. But I just remember that story, and I remember being so scared that I pissed myself. And the only thing I could think of that being is like a skinwalker. So maybe that is a skinwalker. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that story. I've never told that on here, so I hope you guys were entertained and enjoyed it, and maybe got scared. But anyways, later this week I'm gonna post another story about the Appalachian feral people, because I think I also had an experience with that when I was younger. There was a lot of weird shit that happened. But yeah, thank you guys.
My family lives near the Appalachian Trail, and I've lived near the Appalachian Trail for nearly my entire life in 2 different states. Actually, 3 different states, sorry. 3 different states I've lived almost really close to the Appalachian Trail. And people are always talking about how beautiful the trail is itself, like how tranquil it is and whatever. And my husband, who moved from Brazil, had never been there before, so we naturally decided to go camping there one time. I don't know if you're like familiar with Appalachia or anything, but once you step into those woods, like you can feel a significant change in the atmosphere. Like the energy just gets way more heavy, and it's just weird. It feels off. You know that feeling in your gut when you just like know something's off? That's kind of how I was feeling the entire time that we were on the trail. But my husband was having a grand old time, and so I just pushed on. I was like, he's having a great time. He's never been out in these types of woods before. We're just gonna keep going. Whatever, we hiked on, and then we finally found our little camping spot. And when we did set up our camping spot, that's when I noticed that the sounds in the forest had stopped. And if you know anything about the woods, that is not a good sign. We set up our camping spot anyways. I kind of glanced over at my husband to see if he was picking up on what the energy was around the woods, and he totally was too, but he didn't say anything about it, and we just kind of pressed on. Surprisingly though, we were able to fall asleep in our tent. Like the beginning of the night was fine, other than the uneasy feeling that we both kind of had. But I want to say it was around midnight when we started to hear the sounds of footsteps outside of our tent. And if you are like an avid camper, you know that like footsteps outside of your tent is like usually just an animal. However, you can always tell when it's an animal walking on 4 legs versus 2. If you know what I mean? So when we heard the footsteps, we froze and we listened, and we were like, yo, this is not the sound of an animal. Like, we could hear like kind of this low guttural growling that didn't sound like a bear. It didn't sound like any kind of animal that we've ever heard of before. Kind of like it wasn't a human, but it also wasn't quite animal, if that makes any sense. Does that make sense? I don't know what to tell you. It just sounded wrong. So my husband, being the big bad Brazilian that he is, he unzipped the tent and stuck his head out. Whatever he saw had him so damn shook that he muckled onto my arm so hard, and he said, "Don't move. Don't move." He was like, "Don't look, don't look, don't look, don't move, don't look." And of course I looked. And what I saw has absolutely deterred me from going camping on the Appalachian Trail since. It was like this tall, pale, kind of like too thin to be a man type figure. Its arms were really gangly, like they were too long for its body. Mind you, I couldn't see it very clearly, okay, so I'm just like kind of telling you what the outline of what I saw looked like. I could tell that its head was kind of cocked to the side, like something does when it's kind of studying you, like an animal or like something curious. It's like, and although I couldn't see its figure completely, I did see its glowing, creepy looking eyes. They looked like the glowing eyes of an animal off in the woods, but they were like up too high to be an animal. It looked like a person, but somebody who's too tall to be a person, but they were standing like a man. Does that make sense to you? I don't really know how to explain it, but my mind knows what it looks like. We stayed locked in place, barely breathing, clutching on to each other, shaking. My chest felt like it was going to explode from holding everything in, like the anticipation was absolutely crazy. Was this thing going to run at our tent? What was this thing going to do? Every instinct in my body told me to scream and run away, but both of those things in Appalachia are an absolute no-no. Those types of creatures love a good chase. Number one rule in Appalachia is if you've seen something, no you didn't. If you've heard something, no the fuck you didn't. And if you ever see something, you're supposed to just back away slowly. Not pay attention. I didn't see anything. I'm just gonna go back to my car. But anyway, after what seemed like forever, this thing finally stopped staring into our souls, dropped on all fours, and then skittered into the woods as fast as it could. When I say fast, like it was like there and then it wasn't. Like, yeah, we didn't go investigate, obviously. We hunkered down in our tent and we didn't move or sleep for the rest of the night. And as soon as the sky turned even the lightest bit of gray, we sprung into action and tore up our whole entire campsite and left as soon as we could. I've heard so many other stories of creepy things happening to people on the Appalachian Trail. So honestly, it just kind of seems like a thing that happens when you go there, which makes sense. I mean, those are the oldest mountains in America. They have a lot of history, a lot of creatures that we refuse to acknowledge. So if you ever decide to go to Appalachia, do not forget the rules of the woods.
I grew up around the Appalachian Mountains, and I don't know why I never thought to talk about these stories before now, but I'm gonna share them with you because they're fucking terrifying. Back in 2015, I moved into this house with my mom, my dad, my siblings, whatever, and when we first got there, it was like, you know, a cute house, but I've always been very sensitive to, like, paranormal shit, so off the bat, I was like, I'm sensing something, like Will and Stranger Things. I'm like, my neck hair is raising. I loved being alone as a kid, so I would go downstairs. It was a huge basement, nice floor, whatever. I'd be going down there doing gymnastics and stuff, and one day, I was like, let me, record myself to see my form. Let me see if I can improve. I took a picture, and when I looked at the picture, there was this giant green dot next to me, and I'm like, ooh, maybe that's just like light flare, what the fuck. If I look at it more, there's a man's face when I zoomed into it. I was like, ooh, I need to go show my mother. So I went and showed her, and she was like kind of paranoid. She was like, maybe because it's a green light, it could just be one of our past loved ones just protecting us. Like, me and her are very spiritual people, so we weren't too scared of it, just more like, that's a very clear fucking face. Like, that's a little freaky. Time goes on, we start getting stuff moved in down there. And I'm getting chills talking about it. Every person that stayed down there was constantly seeing and hearing shit. At one point, my sister and her kids were living with us, and my niece comes to me one day and she's like, Auntie, like, I keep hearing people calling my name down there. Like, what do you mean? And she's like, I hear people calling my name. I can hear them talking to me. I hear whispers down there, and no one else is hearing it. Mind you, she was like 5 or 6 at the time, so I'm just like, I know you're not lying. There's one time my mom had this picture of Joseph and Mary above this glass table on the wall, and the material of the painting picture, it was very easy to shatter if you had dropped it. So she wakes up and it's laying in the middle of the floor. Now mind you, her room was down in the basement, so if this thing had fallen, she would have heard it and woken up immediately. It was just laying in the middle of the floor, and she's like, okay, that's kind of really fucking weird, like, what the fuck? So she puts it back up and she goes to lay back down. This time it flew off the fucking wall, and so we were just like, oh fuck no. She just didn't put it back up. She moved the table like Another time I would hear voices coming from the vents leading to downstairs. I shit you not. I would get so scared just when it was too quiet, because I'm like, I could hear voices coming from the basement, and I sounded crazy saying that. There's one night, I'm getting really, really, really fucking scared. Like, I keep hearing shit, I keep feeling shit. Like, it started to get very tense. Like, it's not that it felt malicious, but it was starting to be very active and very present. So I asked her, can I come lay with her, because I'm really fucking scared, I can't sleep. So she was like, yeah, lay down, whatever. So I'm laying there for a few minutes, and we would keep our pets in the basement, not like locked up, but like my cat, we would put her downstairs sometimes when we went to bed or when we left the house, just so that she wouldn't be up and scratching on the furniture or whatever. And so we kept her food bowls at the top of the steps so that we could just easily refill them. We hear one of the bowls fall all the way down the steps, and we're just like, okay, the cat's fucking messing with them. So then we heard the other bowl, we heard that one like be more forcefully thrown, And you could hear it hitting each individual step. And, like, you could hear it, like, the bowl hit, and you like the sound when you drop a bowl, and it's like, wah, 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 like that fucking sound. We wake up the next morning, the bowls are at the top of the steps. Nothing fell. They didn't move, but we know what the fuck we heard. Then, there was one time I'm sitting in the kitchen. I had just... So I'm sitting there, you know, enjoying myself. And I start getting, like, this really heavy feeling. And I was like, shit, maybe I smoked too much. Like, maybe I'm freaking myself out. And I'm looking out the window. Behind our house is nothing but trees and woods. It's fucking, like, 1 in the morning. I don't know why I'm doing this to myself, looking out in the fucking woods. High as shit, right? In the reflection of the window, I see something standing behind me. Bitch, I turn around and I see like this 7-foot dark shadow dart down the steps. So I'm fucking terrified. And I just went to my room. I fucking cried. Mind you, I think I was like 17, 18, 19. I think I was like 18 when this happened. Started crying. I was so fucking scared. So it took me a few days and I finally talked about it. And when I'm talking about this, my other sister, she's looking at me and she's like, don't fuck around right now. Like, are you being serious? And I was like, yes, why? She was like, because the other day I was standing in the kitchen and I saw exactly what you're talking about run in the opposite direction, ran to like the kids' room. And so we're all just sitting there like, oh my God. Last one for now. Me and my girl were standing in the laundry room and I was doing my laundry and one of my pockets had chapstick in it. So I was like, shit, take this out, put it on the shelf, threw my pants in the washer. Now me and her just sitting here talking, we're not paying attention to that fuck ass chapstick. So it falls, and we're just like, okay, whatever. Like, it probably just rolled off. Like, I probably just set it down too fast, didn't pay attention. I set it back up there. This shit flew across the goddamn room. Like, in between, it flew. We ran up out that basement so fast. I have so many stories from so many fucking places. From my house, my friends' houses, jobs. If you want to know, please comment, and I will continue this. Because, again, I don't know why the fuck I've never talked about this before. Like, I didn't think that anyone would care. But now I'm just like, I think that would be really interesting to talk about. So,